Hello world, it is Saturday, June 27th. It's a warm and moist day today in Defiance. There's some chances of thunderstorms I hear today, so much needed rain, I think. Today's devotional is entitled A Little Yeast, and it's written by Martha Spong. And Martha bases her devotional on Galatians chapter 5, verse 9. A little yeast leavens the whole batch of dough. And she writes, one of my comments for 2020 was to start baking bread again. And the first attempt was about as disappointing as anything we try for the first time in a long time. I was particularly disappointed in the rise of an early loaf. A baking website I followed recommended a brand of yeast I couldn't find in my local grocery store, so I ordered a 16-ounce bag online in late February. Little did I know there would be a pandemic-induced shortage. The new yeast, no doubt fresher than the packet set up on a high shelf at the store down the street, made a huge difference. The whole loaf of bread was affected by tiny amounts of yeast mixed in with the flour and other ingredients, in this case for the better. I'm like my loaves of bread. The things I incorporate, the spiritual influences and personal contacts and media sources have the power to leaven me, to transform me. Some days they change me for the better, like the beautiful loaf of whole wheat bread I made for my family this week. Sometimes they change me for the worse, and I feel spread out on the pan of life like a dough that did not come together. Today may I choose the yeast that makes me better. And Martha's prayer, creating God, you have given us all the ingredients for a holy life. Help us to choose well. Amen. A couple of things I thought of when I was reading this was, one, beer making. I just finished, or was able to start drinking a batch of German wheat beer that I made. And one of the things I was taught when I learned how to brew my own beer was to make sure that everything was well cleaned and disinfected before you start. Because if it's not, wild yeast or even bacteria can get into the beer and overcome the yeast that you may throw in to ferment the beer, and cause, at best, off-taste flavors, but at worst, something that could be actually dangerous to drink. So that kind of made me think about Martha, when I was reading Martha's devotional, how we can be influenced by the things around us, the things we watch, the things we read. And so I think we have to be careful and look at what we watch on television and the things we read. Look at them to see what is it that they're trying to get across to us, and why are they trying to get that across to us. To question and not just take for granted everything that we take in, because what we take in becomes part of us, and it flavors how we act in the world and how we rise in the world. So it's important to know the yeast that we take in too. I was also thinking of a bread recipe I've been following lately, which is a pretty easy one, in which the ingredients are mixed, and it's a very small amount of yeast. It's only a 1/4 teaspoon of yeast, but you mix everything together and set it on the counter overnight, and then in the morning it has risen quite a bit. And it's amazing to me how small amount of yeast can really change things. In a 1/4 teaspoon, I think a regular bread recipe is somewhere, a packet of yeast would be somewhere around 2 1/4 teaspoons. So this is, that's 6, 8, let's see, 4, 8, that's 9, almost 9 times what I use in this loose dough. So even the smallest things can infect you and affect you and change how you are in the world. So be cognizant of what you're taking in, and be purposeful about what you're taking in. Make sure you take in the good yeast. So think about that. Pray about that. Enjoy your day. Hopefully we get some rain out of this threat of thunderstorms. and hopefully a little bit of cooling off because the heat and humidity is quite high today. Take care. God bless. Talk to you soon.